parents, the child goes to the teacher who will guide that child.
What do you mean by external moral authority? You use that expression a lot.
Materialism has to do with when you are
Hello, it's great to have all of you back for the course in Values and Spirituality. Today we will be looking at religious and societal values, and for those of you who are following with the book, it's pages 39 and 40 respectively of book number 1. As you know, in the past few episodes, Sister Denise has been taking us through things like universal values, spiritual values, economic, mathematical, material values, etc. And all of this, according to Sister Denise, must be understood by us so that we can fully re-examine our own value system and know what works for us. I bid you a warm welcome, Sister Denise.
Thank you.
So the first thing that I'd like to ask you is what is contained in the first few lines of this book. Religious values are based on respect for beliefs and faith of a particular religion, for example, showing respect for the divinity through conventions like covering the head and maintaining silence in religious buildings and ceremonies. Religion, Sister Denise, is something that sits very deeply with people. People are very passionate about it. What role does religious values play in an individual's life?
I think we have to look at whether the person is motivated by the esoteric or the exoteric.
Tell us what those words mean in this context.
Ideally, religion and spirituality would be the same thing. Practically, they're not. The exoteric is the external, the esoteric is the internal. Religious institutions, buildings, practices, rules, and so on have in a way taken over from the original spirituality.
So are you saying at the establishment of a religion this is what the intention was?
How does a religion begin? It doesn't start out as an institution, it ends up as an institution. It starts out as an individual loves God, people get attracted to that person, become followers, and quite a long time after that person's death, a cult is created around the memory of that person. And this ends up as buildings and systems and so on, which evolve over time. Sort of, I'm sure Jesus Christ didn't think, let me start a religion, or the Buddha, or anything like that. I would like to make one comparison with law. We talk about the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. So the spirit of the law corresponds to the esoteric or the spirituality, and the letter of the law corresponds to the exoteric or the religious institution. Religious values tend to arise from and derive from the organization, the patriarchy that gets structured around and who create all the rules. You see this idea of covering the head, actually somebody made that up. It was assigned a meaning. Now, if you cover your head, it means humility or it means respect. If you don't cover your head, it means freedom. So in any kind of religious institution, what they want is compliance, because then it will continue. And spirituality is so individual, it's internal, it's between yourself and God, nothing to do with other people's opinions. What you get is the enforcement of some of these systems because they believe, it's a really deep belief, that if you don't do something, it means something. And if you do something, it means something. Actually, it doesn't. So you get a tacit agreement among all the people which says everybody has to do this because compliancy is more important than what's going on the inside.
Would you say that religious values has other values incorporated within it, or does it stand on its own?
Actually, none of these values stand on their own because they're always derived from a context. And we're talking about religious values together with societal values in this show. And you will find the same thing. What a society wants is to persist. And so anything that helps it to persist is considered valuable. And so it becomes a value.
What is it about religion that makes it so enduring that people return to it time and time again?
So what makes a religion endure is actually purity, and you can't legislate purity.
What is your definition of purity?
Let's again go to the great prophet souls, and let's take the example of Jesus Christ, because he is particularly considered as a very pure soul. And it is actually the purity of that soul that has enough power to sustain the religion. But the people of that religion, they don't know that. But what they believe is that whatever was laid down by the fathers of the church has to be maintained, because if those systems and methods and rules and regulations and practices are followed, then only the religion will persist. They don't know that the power of a religion to persist is connected with the founder of the religion, who, contrary to most people's beliefs, has to reincarnate and sustain that religion by the power of their own being. Now, this is new information.
Are you saying that the souls of Abraham, Buddha, and Christ are amongst us today?
According to the spiritual knowledge, all souls, once you come onto the earth, you remain on the earth. You reincarnate. And the special function of the prophet souls, the founders of religion, is to sustain that religion. Now, what you get in the world today is lots of new religions. So you get some guru or some, enlightened person, and then they gather around themselves lots of followers. And what you find today is it will rise very quickly, it'll last for a bit, and then it'll collapse. And sometimes even within the lifetime of the founder, or maybe it'll run for 1 or 2 or 3 generations. It's because that founder has hardly any power of purity. But the founders of the great religions, which were set up a couple of thousand years ago, is a huge superpower. And this is one of the reasons why the people who adhere to those religions equate those souls with God, because those souls are tangible people, and God is incomprehensible, intangible, mysterious. So it's easier for people to deal with something they can see and feel and touch and hear about. So they like stories about the lives of these people. And then part of their religion is to emulate those lives. It's really on the basis of all of this that the religious values come into being. Societies are also formed around religions. You have the political aspect of society, and the spiritual aspect. For a society to endure, if it doesn't have a spiritual component, it will fizzle out. And we saw this with communism, for example, which was a direct denial of God. And what happened in, say, USSR is the people who were born before 1917, when the Russian Revolution happened, the great-grandmothers, they kept up the spiritual flame and passed it on secretly to their grandchildren and so on. So that when communism fell apart, there was a huge and rapid return to religion. And I remember being over there talking about this with people there, and they would never say, I am an atheist. They would always say, I was educated to be an atheist. People have a deep connection with the spirit, but they don't understand it. Religious values uphold that and sustain that, but they aren't able to explain it.
I would like to know what it means, as far as virtues and powers are concerned, to follow a religion with a sincere heart. What does that take?
To follow a religion with a sincere heart, I think the first thing that it takes is love for God, which is independent of the capacity of that religion to teach you or to support you. It's a personal thing. You know, someone who has been a very powerful presence in any of the religions, they will have that capacity in them. These are the intangible things that actually support the religion with greater efficacy than the actual laid down values.
I've always been very curious as to why it is that religious leaders are men and not women.
The reason for this is that women are considered by definition to be impure. And that's because of their biological functions on a monthly basis. The religions are set up by men and for men, and the women are looked upon as the handmaidens and the servers of the men who look after the religion. You know, in the patriarchy, especially the religious patriarchy, God is always looked upon as male. In Catholicism, you have the Virgin Mary, who is considered the Queen of Heaven, but then she's the queen of a male divinity, you see. In India, you have the Shaktis, but then they always show them as married to some deity, some god. Again, we would say in the societal values, the belief is in patriarchy, and everything has to be subject to the male. And so all of the values, religious and societal, support that idea. And what it has done is created a greater and greater imbalance between men and women, and it's also created an increasing antagonistic relationship between men and women. And what also has happened historically is that women, who actually are known to be more spiritual than men in a general way, are considered, you know, dangerous, witches, they deal with magic, and it's sort of a bit difficult to control. And so the religious values mitigate against women's spirituality, definitely.
I would now like to take you through to the next page, where you discuss societal values. Societal values are concerned with protecting and caring for the community, maintaining the integrity and cleanliness of the environment, ensuring that the social infrastructures remain in good order, and promoting good citizenship and customs. The first thing that struck me about that line is that there is so much evidence to the contrary in the world we're living in today. It's an exception to find societal values rather than the rule.
Well, I think it's because these societal values are designed to actually maintain the status quo, the patriarchy, and to support business. And business tends to use the less privileged to increase its wealth, and things tend to be subjected to that economic aim. This is why I find the religious and societal values in a way compromising, because they support something which encourages loss of balance. This is why they don't work.
What do you mean by loss of balance? Internal or external?
Well, when you have everything designed to support a patriarchy, where the values are skewed against women, children, animals, plants, and stones, this is the order I put it in, then it means those values support exploitation. And whenever you get exploitation, you get damage, you get loss, you get suffering. If you have a value system that is not based on fear of the intangible, then you can have a balanced system. But as soon as you bring in patriarchy, the exoteric, then you start to go out of balance. And when that goes on for a very, very long time, it becomes self-destructive. And why so many people and commissions and so on are saying that we're in a crisis of values is because this imbalance has reached a certain tipping point where if it goes much further, everything will collapse. So how did it get like that? Because of this inherent problem of values being skewed in favor of males and out of favor of females. So the gender bias is a major component that has brought us to where we are now. But people are so deeply loyal to gender bias that if you challenge it, they'll take you out.
I once heard it said that as far as a sense of community is concerned, one, you either give into it, you're either an asset or a liability. You're either giving into society, something that's making society stronger, or you're taking out from it. In terms of what you said in a previous episode of making sure your give and take is balanced, which I think is very powerful, how does one apply that vis-a-vis the individual and society?
In terms of a set of values which are biased towards the patriarchy and against the women, it means that the patriarchy will keep taking and the feminine will keep giving, and it creates a debt which is impossible to pay. So you reach this tipping point beyond which it cannot go. So either you have to reset the balance or everything collapses. So we're at this point where we have to make a choice. Either we reset or we lose everything.
And I'd like you to tell us what do you mean by reset. Certain individuals feel, even if I do this, what's the difference? I'm one person in the entire community doing this. Is it a question that every little thing that one does for society, in favor of society, adds to it, or is it a collective energy?
Obviously, those who, put their little drop in the ocean are going to feel easily discouraged. They will be convinced that it doesn't make any difference whether I do anything or not. But I think also there are some people who are so compelled, internally compelled, you know, that I must stand up for the truth even if it kills me, which it usually does. Like you said on another occasion, no good deed goes unpunished. You know, that's an interesting statement. The thing is, this phenomenon that when you reach a certain point, a tipping point, you must reset, otherwise it'll flip over. And so, like, we're at that danger point.
Sorry, I want to interrupt you there. We, meaning everyone on the planet?
Everyone on the planet is in a danger point. People can feel, oh, we don't know what's going on, everything is out of control, this sort of thing is happening. To reset the balance, you would think that you need a great religious prophet or someone of that caliber to come along and sort it all out. And you have this concept of a Deus ex machina.
That's not English. Would you translate that?
Deus ex machina means, you know, the divine energy from outside comes in and sorts it all out. And then the humans go back to happiness and love and peace and everything is fine. The triumph of good over evil. Instead of collapsing, we pull ourselves back from the brink, you know, and there's so many stories and myths about this, and then people go for that, they believe in that, they feel, you know, it was not possible for things to get beyond a certain point, you know. But actually, I think that you get a combination of many forces coming together, which means that it does make a difference. An individual who feels compelled to stand up for truth as they see it or whatever, that's one component. Then you have the matter of time, you know, because according to history, certain things happen at certain times. And the way the machinery of the universe works, you see, and which is somewhat outside the range of most people's comprehension, but there are scientific people who think about this, religious people think about this, philosophers think about this. Then also there is the mysterious force of God, who is called the Creator. If you think about the Hindu trilogy, Brahma, Vishnu, Shankar, this idea of establishment, sustenance, destruction, and then continuity. So you have these incomprehensible myths which underpin people's sense of survival, sense of continuity. People, they just don't have a sense that everything ends. Science will say, well, you know, there was a big bang and everything started, and there'll be another big bang and then it'll all stop. You see, and people will say, well, there has to be meaning, you see. So there are other forces that are operating which may be very invisible and which become evident at a certain point in time. But I think that we're in the middle of all this, and these religious values and societal values are trying to hold the status quo in the face of ever-increasing deconstruction of the systems that have you know, maintained society, you see.
Thank you, Sister Denise.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, brothers and sisters, the question of religious values and societal values. A very rich and interesting subject. It surprised me that the half an hour passed so quickly. I would invite you to ask yourself, as far as religion is concerned, where do you stand? And as far as your own community or society is concerned, where do you stand? And I like how Sister Denise shared what it means to be a religious person with integrity, and how one looks at yourself in society, and what you get out of it and what you gain from it. So very profound message, Sister Denise. Many blessings.
Thank you.
And I hope that something in today's lesson was of meaning to you. I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Goodbye.